What's up, guys? We're back. We're going to continue on with part two of our combat medicine in Ukraine version, March, right? The March algorithm. If you're keeping up, this is part two. We're going to go over R's and C, maybe H if we can get to it. Last video we went over M and A, so watch last video if you haven't already. Real quick, we've been getting a ton of applications for the new International Battalion Azov. Really excited about this. We've got a ton of experience and a lot of really solid people on this team. So if you're interested in coming to Ukraine, or you're already on your way to Ukraine and you've been looking for a specific unit, you don't know where to go, who to join, check us out over here at Azov. I'll leave the application linked in the description below in this video. Also, you're welcome to email me if you have any questions regarding the unit. With that said, if you do fill out the application, in the comments section, fill in that you know me, you know Vegas, right? So I have a frame of reference. It's easier to find you on our list. Okay, so my name is Saxon. For anybody who's new here, I go by Vegas here in Ukraine. I joined the International Legion for the defense of Ukraine in January of 2023. I was in 1st Battalion, Charlie 3 Platoon. I'm now with Azov International Battalion, 1st Company. With that said, please hit me up if you're interested, you guys. We've got a lot of people reaching out, and of course, not everybody's going to be right for the position, but we are accepting people without combat experience or without military experience, specifically because Azov has a pretty rigorous training regimen. So they are confident, we are confident of getting people up to a standardized level of soldier, whether or not you have prior experience. Now, prior military experience and combat experience is always going to be preferred. If you have that, phenomenal. Make sure you make that clear in the comment section. If not, it's not a deal breaker. All right. Let's jump into part two of the March algorithm here, you guys.
Pretty much sums up the A portion from the March algorithm. Now we go into respirations. Now we're going into the R portion of our March algorithm.
All right, recap. M, massive bleeds. Massive bleeds are the #1 cause of death here in Ukraine in this conflict on the front line. Number 1, massive bleeds, M. Number 2, airway. Checking your airway, making sure the person can breathe. That's the second thing that'll kill you the fastest, right? Now we're on to respirations.
Respiration. Basically, that means we're gonna check if we have any holes in the box. By the box, I mean from the nose to the belly button. If there's any holes, we put an occlusive dressing on. But first of all, we expose the chest. We check the neck. We check the armpits. We look for breathing, bilateral rise and fall of the chest. If we're too stressed out to hear or see breathing, we take our hands, we say no homo, and we feel for breathing. Okay, good bilateral rise and fall. Nice. Now we pray a bit. We go up. If we see any discoloration on the collarbone, probably is broken. We're not gonna do any good if we find out, yes, exactly, it's broken. We just treat it as it's broken. Now it's okay. We just walk. Okay, nice. We go on one side of the...
All right, so to be clear, I said when we go through this, I'm going to kind of edit some things verbally, right, via this video and this reaction to match it with the circumstances here in Ukraine, okay? Because March algorithm has been used for a very long time, and primarily in the Middle East combat setting, Afghan, Iran, Iraq, this kind of stuff. Okay, this is a different kind of conflict. Some things need to change. So right now, he's doing the prayer hands. he is checking the sternum, right? And he's checking these ribs up here. You're not going to have time for any of that shit when you're doing this here in Ukraine. Okay, so typically, hey, chill. Okay, so respirations, the biggest things are going to be look for the chest rise and fall. Is he breathing normally? Is only half of his chest rising and falling? You know what I mean? Is he struggling to breathe? Let's keep it going. But doing all this palpation, like trying to feel for broken ribs and shit, it's just you don't have the time for that when you're doing combat medicine, even in this stage where you've hopefully got him to a safer location and you're able to start doing a little bit more in-depth searches on him and interventions. Still,
Rib cage, we just do just a bit of squeeze. We check if he's doing like a grimace. If he's doing like, ah, we stop. Okay, nice. If we did find a hole, was here.
okay, something that's important, maybe he does right here.
Use your hand. Put it on.
Okay, there's so much shrapnel in this conflict, right? Very, very small shrapnel that can pierce into the skin, into the body, into the box, and the hole that it made was so small that you struggle to see it. So we do what we call tiger claws, right? Which is you've got your casualty like this, you got his shirt up or you got it cut off, and you do tiger claws. You're pulling the skin apart so you can expose any of these little tiny holes. So when you're pulling the skin, it'll open up a little bit and you can see, okay, there it is. It's super important. We have seen people, this has happened more times than I can count, where people will have like these little flechette darts, right? They're little steel darts, and they'll go straight into a lung, right? But they're so small, so thin, the medics don't find any like big holes, so they assume they're okay. And then by the time they get to where the CCP or the stab point, they have died from tension pneumo, which we'll cover a little bit more what tension pneumo is here in a minute. And with these really, really tiny pieces of shrapnel, metal, plastic, wood from trees, if they're tiny and thin, they won't always bleed. So if you're only looking for blood on his chest, you may not see it because the piece of shrapnel is so thin, basically went into his body, and the skin kind of like already like around the initial entrance hole. And now on the flip side of that, they could be bloody already, right? They could be bloody from facial trauma, or they got a bloody nose, or another part of them was bleeding, or something like that. So this is another reason you have to do the tiger claws, or you pull the skin apart like this, because if there's already blood, you don't know if that's from a wound in the box, if that's from a different wound they have. So you got to make sure you're seeing, right, and addressing any wounds in the box. Also, it's important to not wear black gloves because of this, because if you got the blue regular like surgical gloves, it's a lot easier to see blood on your hands, right? When you're doing the spread of the skin, oh shit, okay, there's blood right here. You got black gloves on, can't really see it, especially at night. You will never see blood at night on black gloves.
Get an occlusive dressing, open it up. Usually I pre-pack my occlusive dressing with an NCD. Oh, I have troubles opening. What do? Don't be afraid to let it go. You're going to be faster taking out an occlusive dressing. Wipe it off and put it on, then like this number or something like that. Or get a partner, put your hand here. Anybody can do it. Okay, we put this on. What do? You check. No.
So occlusive dressing is another word for a chest seal. basically just to seal that. We'll cover that open wound in the box so you're not getting air into your thoracic cavity, which puts pressure onto your other organs. That's what's called a tension pneumothorax. You get air into into the box. It starts putting pressure on the other organs and ends up basically with enough pressure, because when the air goes in through this hole, the air doesn't come out. So it just continues to build and build and build pressure until your heart stops. That's what's called a tension pneumo. That's actually the second cause of death here in Ukraine, tension pneumo. So this is what I meant by the March algorithm is very good to go by, but it's supposed to be in order from the most immediate interventions to the least immediate. Now, this is R, right? Theoretically, this could be in a similar spot with A. It could be like M, A, and R on the same importance level, CH, right? Because if tension pneumo is what kills the second most amount of people here in Ukraine, it's got to move up in the importance level. So yes, this chest seal will cover that and stop air from coming in. Now you can get better chest seals that are called vented chest seals, and this will allow, if there is air in the thoracic cavity and you've got one of these vented chest seals, it can push air out. It's a one-way valve, essentially. So the air can come out, but no air can go in. So the vented chest seals are really what you'd like to have. Otherwise, you have to do what's called burping these chest seals, which is every couple of minutes you lift up a side, make sure any air in there comes out. It'll make a noise, and then you put it back down, right? With vented chest seals, you don't have to worry about that.
No suck, no blows. Okay, we patched the hole. Now we're just gonna go for the rule of thumb again. If our patient is experiencing trouble breathing and he has a hole in his chest that we put an occlusive dressing on, we put two and two together, he has a tension pneumothorax. We have to do a NCD, but that in a later video. All bad things come in too, so we have an entry hole, probably.
NCD is needle decompression device. Basically, it's just a needle that punches into the box to release that pressure, so that pressure does not continue to shut down your organs, right? So needle Ds is what we call them, go in, and there's a specific location where you have to put them, but they go in and release that pressure like a pop, like I was gonna say like popping a balloon, but slowly.
There's an exit hole, so we have to check the back. We do a body hug. Check it, okay? Okay, we don't see anything. Good.
This guy's extremely experienced. I know it because I've watched his videos before. But like I said, this conflict's different. So in how we're trained here, when we get combat medic certified in Ukraine, you roll this person, roll them over and you have to visually feel and look at his back. You do the tiger claws again, you peel, you spread the skin apart on the back as well, the same as you did the front. Because I mean, when there's shrapnel, it can come in anywhere, right? You could be fighting the enemy at your 12 o'clock and a mortar lands behind you, and now you got shrapnel in your back, but nothing came out the front, right? So you gotta do better than just hug around and feel.
If we see blood, we know it, but we're gonna check it later when we're checking his back. Now we're going to see circulation from our...
And he said, if you see blood, we note it, and we will come back to it when we're checking his back. You address that immediately here in this conflict, because if he does have shrapnel in his back, the same issue will be caused from the front. When you have a hole in the box up front, you start getting that pressure in, creates the tension pneumo. Same thing happens back here. The only difference is there's a lot more vitals when you're closer to the back, like closer to your spine, right? You've got a lot more vital organs back here. So theoretically, getting hit in the back, a puncture wound in the back, in the box area, is going to be more lethal than the front. Theoretically, right? Unless you get pierced right in the heart.
Our march protocol.
C, circulation.
First of all, we check our interventions.
Okay, I was just double checking. Yeah, so we just went over R. So MAR, massive bleeds, airway, and respirations. Now we're on C, circulation.
If they are still holding, okay, everything seems to be in order. If we did any neck wounds, pocket wounds, inguinal wounds, we double check it. Yeah, it's good. And if our hands are bloody, we wipe them off and we do the blood sweeps. If we see any blood, we take our scissors, we expose the wound, and then decide what we're gonna do with him. If it's a minor venous blood, small cut, don't worry about it for now, just go forward. Think. Oh. Just a tip. Here I probably see blood, expose it. It's just a minor cut. So now what we're gonna do, it's a minor cut, he has a tourniquet on. So the tourniquet is pretty much useless. So now we decide what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a compression bandage. We're gonna convert it. We don't know. That we're gonna cover in the next video.
Don't worry about tourniquet conversions. Get completely out of the combat zone and let somebody with more experience handle tourniquet conversions, because they can be lethal if you don't do them right. Strictly because you don't want to let the blood back into the system too quickly, and you start pushing around toxic blood that's been stagnant. And when you start pushing around toxic blood really quickly through your system, it can literally kill you. So it's better to just leave the tourniquet on until you get this person to somebody with a higher level of medical skill.
We finished our blood sweeps. Now we check his pulse. Okay, if we feel the radial, awesome, he's not in shock. If you don't feel the radial, check the carotid, he's alive. If you don't feel the radial pulse, that means he's in decompensated shock. He's not doing good. He's pretty much fucked up. Okay. Feel the skin, the color. Okay. Pink, warm and dry. Awesome. Now what we're gonna do, we have to turn it over.
Pink, warm and dry, he said. Those are good signs to see when it comes to skin color, pallor, and pallor. What you don't want to see is changing color, gray, blue, really, really sweaty if it's not supposed to be sweaty, right? Cold, you don't want that.
To check his back. But first of all, what we're gonna check, if he has a broken pelvis, we close the book and then we open it. If we see a grimace on his face at any time, we stop immediately. That tells us that he has a broken pelvis and we have to move him in another way, but that in another video.
Pelvis breaks are one of the most painful breaks that you can receive, and as far as bone breaks, and also the pelvic bowl, right? This your pelvis can, if you're bleeding from the inside, your pelvis can actually hold the majority of your blood. So theoretically you could bleed out. If it's internal bleeding though, it'd still be inside, but it'd be into your pelvic bowl, which is still on the inside of you. And you could bleed out without losing blood from the body, it all bleeds into your pelvic bowl. It's pretty gnarly. It's pelvic fractures and pelvic wounds are just, they're a nightmare, and they're hard to treat. If you could bleed out of the pelvis, you could bleed a lot of blood out of the pelvis really fast as well. It's they're just, you never want that.
Now we check this. We need to prep our equipment. We're gonna turn you over. So pretty much what we need: our litter for hypothermia, already heat. Before we saw an entry wound in his chest. We prep our second halo. We prepped our equipment, but what happened beforehand? I broke my glove, and because I know my buddy's sexual preference of women and small farm animals, I'm gonna put a fresh glove on. Okay, now we're gonna turn him on the side.
If your casualties in and out of, basically they're on the verge of dying, don't fucking go waste time to dig into your bag and go get another glove, right? And I know this guy wouldn't do that either, right? But I'm assuming he's saying, get this, make sure you're completely covered, you're using your PPE correctly if the situation allows for that, right? Your casualty is relatively stable, you can just reach over, put a new glove on. But if this guy's fucking spurting out blood from different areas and you're doing different, don't go get a glove in the middle of this.
We check for his downside wound. Okay, nothing noted. Check his neck. No step-offs or deviations. Down. Okay. We prep our radial heat between his legs. So we do the hypothermia portion. Okay, one.
So just a couple of minor differences that we do here. Number one is, when I was in the US as an EMT, C-spine or, your collar, your spine, making sure this was all not getting tossed around after an accident, making sure you're not damaging it more because it can cause all kinds of issues. That was like one of the most important things when it came to an EMT, and when you come up on a car accident or when somebody has a suspected head injury or back or neck injury. Here in Ukraine, you really jump past it. I mean, it's weird to say, but the truth is, if this person has a broken back or broken neck, there's not much you can do for them. You're gonna have to get them out of the situation as fast as possible, no matter what. And it's all the same way. You're putting them on one of these stretchers like this, one of these mega movers or litters, and you're moving them out, right? You're not going to be able to secure their neck very well. Maybe if time allows for it, you could create a little spine or put some splints or tape them up. But typically, you're not going to be worried about C-spine or, broken back, broken neck, that kind of stuff. Also, when you roll them up like this and you're checking their back, it is definitely a good idea to get your thermal blanket and get it up underneath him. Same with your stretcher. So when you fold him back over, you've got the thermal blanket under him and you got the stretcher. You can wrap him up like a burrito. It looks like he's kind of doing this in a different type of way, but the same idea.
1, 2, 3. Put him back in. Now we ask him, hey buddy, how are you? You good?
Good.
Okay. We're assessing his level of consciousness. Then check his airway. Yeah, he's still breathing. I see rise and fall of the chest. He still has a radial pulse. Nice. LOC, ABC is done. Now interventions. We moved him.
I'm not sure LOC, ABC. I don't know what those acronyms are. But basically, he's reassessing. He just finished his R, right? No, I mean C. Now he's reassessing everything, which means just again going back through your march from the top down, just really quickly though, making sure he's not all of a sudden spurting blood out of somewhere new. Make sure he's not all of a sudden choking on some vomit or something. You know what I mean?
It's like an invasive thing that we did with his body. And before that, we did a couple of interventions on. Now we have to check them if they're still holding. Check the MPA. Okay, it's in. It was taped in. Okay, good breathing. Check his halo. No suck, no blow. Nice. Check his tourniquet. Yeah, still holding. Now let's do a bit of paperwork. Where's his T-CCC card? Time for the cat. Noted on and noted on the T-CCC card. And this you put somewhere on him that he's not gonna lose. On his hand, on his belt.
So he has not completed H yet, and he's doing his casualty card already. This is obviously how they're trained, how their SOPs work. I don't recommend it. You want to make sure you're done with all of March, right? Because H is head wounds, hypothermia, and technically hypovolemic shock, but really hypothermia and head wounds. And while you're writing this dude's casualty card, he could literally die of hypothermia right in front of you because you have not treated him for hypothermia yet. You have not put this thermal blanket around him. You have not taken the precautions to start warming his body up, right? So do casualty card after March.
Okay, the T-CCC card goes with him. We note all interventions that we did on it, so the flight medic and the surgeon in the hospital has an easier job. Now that we put our guy on the litter, we checked his level of consciousness, ABCs and interventions. Now we go into H, which stands for hypovolemia, head injury, and hypothermia. For hypothermia, we already prepped our ready heat. Also have pre-staged blanket, and we cover him up the best we can. If not, we improvise. We do something. We take our hat, we put it on him. If he has any wet clothes, we change them. Nothing works well if our casualty is cold. A bit of hypothermia is done. Check the head for head injuries. If it's something minor, we just bandage it up. But if you see blown out pupils, raccoon eyes, which basically means discoloration under his eyes, if you see something leaking out of his ears, something out of his nose, that's an indication that he might have traumatic brain injury. We pretty much can do a lot of things for him. If he is not in shock, we can raise his shoulders and head for about 30 degrees, keep him breathing, and that's in our toolbox of help that we can give him. Okay, now what? You're not a...
Couple of things. If you see, what is it? CSF, I believe, cerebral spinal fluid, that like clear fluid, spinal fluid. If it's coming out of his nose or his ears, he definitely has a TBI, traumatic brain injury. This guy's in trouble, okay? Also, if he does have an open wound on his head, like the box, you never pack the box, right? You don't put gauze into a hole if it's in this box, because this isn't a hollow cavity. So you'll just be filling their abdomen, their thoracic cavity here, with gauze, right? You can't pack that. And with the brain, if you start packing in, you're going to damage their brain. Okay, so ideally, what you'll see is people will put what they call like a mushroom cap, kind of. And if there's a wound right here, they'll just kind of stack gauze on top of it and secure it in place, right? So it's firm. Hopefully it's stopping any bleeding, or at least mitigating it, but you're not packing in in gauze and into their actual brain, right?
The medic, and you need to cover hypovolemia. We suspect that he's going into shock and we need to fight it. We need to give him an IV or an IO. But do we have the capability? Do we have the knowledge, the skill? But that in another video.
IVs and IOs, again, unless you are at least CMC trained, combat medic corpsman trained, don't worry about it. You want to get them to somebody who's CMC trained and they can take care of that. IVs or intravenous, and IOs or intraoscular or something like that. It basically, you give them fluids, but through their bone. You drill into their actual bone and you pump fluids through there, or drugs or whatever they need. So don't worry about the IVs and IOs.
We packed our patient up, but we can still help. We give him his combat pill pack if he can swallow it. Can you swallow?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Every IFAC comes with a combat pill pack, and if it doesn't, make sure you make your own or find an IFAC that does. And it's just a few different pills, and like a painkiller, an anti-inflammatory, and 2 different kinds of antibiotics typically, because if you're fucked up, you've got open wounds, your chances of infection are a lot higher than usual. These antibiotics, you get them in immediately and try to stem off the chances of you getting an infection. Combat pill pack is kind of the least of your worries. If this person's okay, they're talking with you, they can drink water, they're sitting up, they're okay. Yeah, give them their combat pill pack for sure. But if they're in like deep shit, don't prioritize a combat pill pack. Okay, the actual medics will be pumping them full of fucking antibiotics and pain meds into their IVs soon enough anyways. Okay. So that's the big stuff, you guys. This one ran a little bit longer, but I wanted to finish March out. Just to recap: M, massive bleed; A, airway; R, respirations; C, circulation; and H is hypothermia and head wounds. They talk about hypervolemia here. It's not something that you're going to be treating necessarily here in Ukraine, especially on the front. That's the big stuff. I mentioned this in the last video. I mentioned this in multiple videos. These videos are not for combat medics or people who want to be combat medics. This is for every single soldier, every single person coming to Ukraine that will be operating anywhere near within 50 kilometers of the front line should know their basic March algorithm. Because I've said this before again, I'm willing to say 85% of the casualties that take place here in combat, they need to self-aid themselves, administer self-aid. They need to be doing a lot of these interventions on themselves if they can, right? Because the nature of this war, medics aren't able to get to you right away, if at all. Okay, the enemy really singles out medics, and they will intentionally wound or hurt, make a casualty in a specific location to try to draw out the medics and take out the medics that way. So it's just like, this is stuff every single person should know if you're going to be operating in a combat zone or anywhere even near one. That's it, you guys. Hopefully this was a little bit informative for you. This is, if you are on your way out to Ukraine, this is stuff, if you're in a good unit, they should cover with you, whether or not you're a medic. But if not, just go over these videos, man. There's no standardized March algorithm for the conflict here. There's no standardized medicine and combat medicine for the conflict here. Everybody is adapting to the circumstances in this conflict. Years after this war, there will be new SOPs and new algorithms put in place, or at least shifted. But right now, any doctors, surgeons, medics, and even lower than that are figuring out these things on the fly. They're figuring out, hey, R needs to come in front of H, right, or in front of A right now because of this, and that's an extreme example, but these things are happening. Things are changing. Things are different. They're dynamic. It's not what we're used to this past like 2-3 decades that we've been using the standard March algorithm from Middle Eastern conflicts. Okay, I love you guys. Please like, share, subscribe. Hit me up in my email or click the application below if you want to come see what's up with us over at Azov. Love you guys.